Hello and welcome, readers. This is my very first YouTube video on this page. My name is Amy. I go by Booktrovert Bliss here on YouTube and Instagram, and maybe soon on TikTok. Kind of got hosed by the App Store, so we'll see. I'll do a thorough introduction sometime soon, but let's go ahead and get into my first video of here is what I read in January 2025. Up first is Rental House. This is an inside look at an interracial relationship and all of the family dynamics and issues that go along with that. This is one of those books that's really long chapters, so it's kind of a first half and a second half. I enjoyed the first half a lot more. I thought it was really interesting. The second half was also pretty good, but it kind of fell off a little bit for me. The audiobook was super quick. That's how I read it, through Libby Audio. And I did it really quickly over the course of a weekend of just doing some cleaning and housework. So I gave it a 3.5 stars out of 5. Up next is The Berry Pickers. I read this for a new literary fiction book club that I joined in my area. This book follows an Indigenous family from Nova Scotia. In the summers, they trek down to Maine to pick blueberries at the fields there. So in the beginning of this book, a 4-year-old girl who is a part of this family goes missing. And the rest of the book kind of goes over how that traumatic event affected all of the other family members. This book has rave reviews, and I have to admit that I think that I probably didn't enjoy it as much as other people do. If you enjoy a historical fiction and something that's really delving into family dynamics and multi-generational family issues, then this might be a book for you. It was really interesting. Like, I'll admit, each chapter kind of played like its own story. And it was really interesting to see how this traumatic event affected everyone, but I just wasn't that super invested in any of the characters. So it was interesting, but I gave it a 3.25 stars out of 5. Up next is A Sea of Unspoken Things. So I'm a big Adrienne Young fan. I love The Unmaking of June Farrow. Spells for Forgetting was also really amazing. This book, though, is a bit more of a mystery than it is a romance like those other two books. And it was fine. It was still very atmospheric. Nobody talks about a setting like Adrienne Young does. But out of the three, I'd have to say it's probably my least favorite book. It's really more about the connection between our main character, James, and her twin, who ends up dead. And so there's a mystery behind his death, and they try to solve it. And there is a little bit of romance in there, but it was very secondary to the actual mystery and the family dynamics going on there. So I gave it a 3.75 stars out of 5. After that, we have Beg, Borrow, and Steal by Sarah Adams. I love this When in Rome series. This is the third book in the series. And this one was also really, really cute. This one follows one of the other sisters, Emily, and it's kind of an enemies to lovers type of romance. Emily is a teacher, and she's had this long-running feud with one of her other teachers, Jackson. So he moves away, ends up coming back, and they kind of realize that they sort of miss each other during that time and develop some sort of a friendship that turns into a bromance. So like I said, it was still really cute. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Up next, I listened to the audiobook of The Favorites. This book is getting super popular right now. It's getting some big comparisons to some Taylor Jenkins Reid books. A lot of people say it's like Daisy Jones and the Six just because it's sort of told through interviews. But I honestly think it's more like Carrie Soto is back just because it's about a high level of competition. This book follows Kat and Heath as they try to make their Olympic ice dancing dreams come true. Yes, that is a Wuthering Heights reference. So this book was an absolute emotional roller coaster. It gave me so much anxiety and really stressed me out just because the characters, they love each other, they hate each other, they do things to each other to get revenge on each other. And it's not just the two main characters, it is kind of the core cast of characters who do this to each other. So I'll admit, like, I was really drawn in and needed to know what happened next, but there were parts where I just needed to like take some time away from it because I was so stressed out about what was gonna happen. But that made me think that I probably really cared for these characters. So I definitely recommend it. 4.5 out of 5 stars for me. My next book is Andromeda, which was a delightful surprise for me. I had not even heard about this book until it was picked as a January Book of the Month pick. It is translated from Swedish, And I did not expect to annotate this book as much as I did. I found it highly quotable. It is another one of those books that's basically 2 long chapters that it goes through one character's perspective in the first half and another character's perspective in the second half. And it follows a woman who is new to the world of publishing, and she strikes up this friendship with, you know, the editor-in-chief at the publishing house. So you think that maybe that might delve into something a bit creepy, but it stays a friendship. But how they look at the world of literature is very similar, and so they kind of are like soulmates. And this book just had so many amazing musings about literature, about commercialism, about romantic relationships and what that means to us. It talked a lot about friendship and about the role that work plays in our lives. So I wrote down some of the best quotes, and I definitely am going to refer back to them. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Up next, we have Death of the Author, which, by the way, this is an absolutely gorgeous book. I'm going to take the cover off right now because you guys need to see it. It has another cover on the inside, beautiful edges, and just a beautiful design as well. Death of the Author follows Zelu. She is a Nigerian-American paraplegic who is an adjunct professor at a university. However, she gets fired. She's really going through it. But in the midst of her super low point, she sparks an idea to write a novel and does so. It becomes a huge sci-fi bestseller that spawns a movie franchise. But a lot of this story has to do with her background and with her family and how she's treated within her family, both before and after her injury that caused her to become a paraplegic. And it also goes over, once she hits this high level of stardom, how her family treats her and how that changes or doesn't change. And after she becomes this best-selling author, she makes some personal changes to her life. And so it was just really, really very interesting. The chapters in this book go from her perspective to some interviews with her family members and includes some chapters from Rusted Robots, the best-selling book. I'll admit, I did not see the last chapter coming. So that is Death of the Author. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. And finally, to round out January, is the book that probably made me the most angry out of any of these books, and that is Cross My Heart. I originally wasn't that interested in reading this book just because I'm kind of trying to steer away from popcorn thrillers, and I thought the premise was kind of far out there, but I had seen so many book reviews saying how amazing it was, so I figured I'd give it a chance. Like, I do like some thrillers. I loved Listen for the Lie. I loved Such a Bad Influence that came out last year, so I figured I'd give it a go. And I'll admit, I gave this book as high of a rating as I did just because it did pique my interest and I did want to keep going and wanted to know what was going to happen. However, I didn't find the twists very twisty. I found that all of the characters pretty much really insufferable. And I didn't enjoy how they made every female character pretty much in this book have kind of the same personality and have some of the same character traits. Particularly showing single female characters in a light that makes them look really crazy. So I didn't really enjoy that about the book, but if thrillers are your jam, you'll probably enjoy this one. For me, it was fine. So that's what I read in January. Thank you so much for watching my very first video. If you have any ideas of bookish content that you would like me to do, please drop me a comment because I'd love to hear from you and I'd love to know what you would like to watch. Have a good one.